Hi, this is an activity called Forgiven Sins Disappear. The teaching goal of this activity is that when we confess our sins to Jesus, He forgives them. And when we confess our sins to God, they are completely gone. Now this activity involves a little extra work by the parents because you're going to have to get a special kind of paper called flash paper. You can find it at magic stores. You can go online and order it, but it's worth it. Wait till you see this activity. You'll need flash paper, pencil, or some kind of marker, sheet of styrofoam, aluminum foil, pins or small nails, toothpicks, and matches. We begin the activity by talking about sin. What is sin? And how do we know what sin is in our lives? We talk about that, and we talk about Jesus paying the price for our sin. Then we make our cross. Now I've cut this cross out of styrofoam and then covered it with aluminum foil. One of the tricks when you cover it is you want to secure it to the back of the cross with tape. If you use tape on the front of the cross, then that can actually catch fire and kind of take a little bit away from the activity when you're doing it. We also use a little extra piece of styrofoam to create a stand. So in this case I put a hole in this piece so that the cross would stand up in it. You can also use toothpicks. So now you've made the cross. While you're making the cross, by the way, you don't have to make this in advance. Do it with the kids. But as you're making the cross, you can kind of re-summarize the Easter story and why Jesus had to die on the cross, and how His death on the cross, for those of us who believe and follow Him, leads to life with God, and how that takes away our sin. Talk about those kind of things as you're making the cross. Now in the next part of the activity, you take pieces of flash paper that you've cut into small pieces, and you write specific sins that you struggle with. Now some of them are pretty obvious in the family. If you've got a child who says no to everything, and everybody knows that that child says no to everything, then you can just write that on there. You know, Johnny, you struggle with saying no when we ask you to do something. It's not a big surprise. But you don't want to necessarily, in front of the whole family, reveal sins that aren't common like that. As your kids get older and do this activity, they may want to bring a specific sin to the cross, but may not yet be ready for you to know about it. And so I encourage them just to use initials or use some other keyword. So if I lied to my mom when I was at the pool, instead of putting lying to mom, I might put pool, until the Spirit has prepared them to share those. But the important thing is we want them bringing their sins to Jesus and to the cross. So we take these sins and we pin them to the cross. Now another important tip about doing this activity: make sure the pieces of flash paper are touching, because you're going to want the fire to transfer from one piece to the next. If it's kind of sitting out here on the edges without touching other paper, maybe it'll be left there and not burn, and that can kind of take away from the message. So we have Jesus who died on the cross for our sins. We've taken our sins and we've brought them to Jesus, and we've nailed them to the cross. In this case I've used pins, but you could use small nails. And when we give our sins to Jesus, He takes them away. Now what's great about flash paper is there's nothing left. There aren't any ashes, there's nothing. And that's part of the message, that when we give our sins to God, they're not just gone with a little bit left over. They are completely gone, as far as the east is from the west. Thanks for listening to this Family Time.